5 things I wish I knew before starting a PhD. Look at tenure-track job openings in your field year over year over the past, 10 years, and also look at the number of newly minted PhDs in your field year over the past 10 years to understand your job prospects. If you're in my field, like Middle East history, or economics, or political science, or cultural anthropology, you are entering a field that has suffered 50 to 80% decline in new job opportunities over the past 2 years, just the past 2 years. And those 2 years have come at the tail end of a decade, actually 2 decades long crisis in academia, where only 3.5% of people who start PhDs ever get tenure, a figure that of course predates the pandemic. So yeah, starting a PhD is kind of like starting a career at JCPenney's or Hobit Coal Mine in West Virginia. What kind of lifestyle do you want to lead? Pursuing a PhD is a lifestyle choice as much as it is a minimum wage job. You can put in as much or as little time as you want. You can spend your weekends in the lab or writing or getting high with the Tarabin bedu of northern Sinai, which I wouldn't recommend because the Sinai gangja is total shwag. I'm just saying, bring your own chronic. But nobody is going to ensure that you publish in the top journals or present at the best conferences or decline invitations to publish in the International Scientific Journal of the Social, Economic, Political, and Historical, and Biological, and Chemical. You are your own manager and your own mental health advisor, which is also, by the way, why you are 6 times more likely than the general public to be anxious or depressed. Do you have narcissistic tendencies? If the answer is yes, then academia may be right for you. And that's because academics see their research as an extension of themselves. They publish under their own names, and those names are printed. They are stamped onto the products that those academics deliver into the world. The 1915 Locust Attack by Zachary J. Foster. That's right, my middle name starts with a J, and if you don't like that, then you can go read Stephanie Wichthart's shitty. By the way, if you work at a company, you don't get to do that. Like if you work at Twitter and you worked on, Twitter Moments, like you don't get to be like, Twitter Moments brought to you by Chad, a white guy from Missouri who likes podcasts and Patagonia. As an academic, you are your product. People don't even remember the names, the titles that you assign to your products, the papers that you publish. They just refer to you. Have you read Joanne Smith's work on temporal remapping of post-structuralist hybridities? Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Preston's Reimagining Ethno-Colonial Horse Manure. 4th question to ask yourself, are you really interested in something really obscure, while at the same time convinced that that really obscure thing is actually really important? So important, in fact, that you should dedicate years of your life to it. And in fact, the key is not so much convincing yourself that it's really important, it's convincing other people, because in order to get published, to get grants and jobs, you have to convince everyone else that this obscure minutia thing is really original and novel, and that it's really important and no one's ever said it before. And of course that means you're splitting hairs and solving a really small problem. But in order to get published and get jobs and grants, you have to convince everyone that really small, obscure, irrelevant hair of a hair that you split is actually really important and should impact everyone. James C. Scott has mastered this approach. He first wrote a book about peasants in South Asia, then about peasants, and then about all subordinated groups, and managed to convince everyone along the way that that small thing that he had studied mattered to that bigger thing that mattered to that even bigger thing. 5th question to ask yourself, do you aspire to own a home or send your kids to college or get guacamole at Chipotle? Consider that you are making a 5, 6, 7-year investment earning minimum wage, and that you might be a postdoc for a year or 2 or 3, still be making 40, 50, 60K a year if you're lucky. And then if you're a top 5%er, manage to get a tenure-track job and be making, 50, 60, 70K to start. And so this is a 10-year process, which at the end of it, if you're a top 5 or top 1%er, you might be making a decent salary with a decent job. So you have to consider these 5 questions if you are thinking about doing a PhD. Thank you so much for tuning in and for subscribing to the channel. Until next time.